Hi, this is Dr. Julie Gilbert from Oregon Weight and Wellness, and welcome to today's live stream. We are here with Rachel Matthews. Hi, Rachel. And special guest Ashley McRoberts. Ashley's been spending some time with me. She's a fourth-year medical student from Western.
Hi, guys.
And we're happy to have her. Always love teaching future generation of docs. So happy to have Ashley here. And we are talking about, Michael Pollan's food rules. Rachel, what chapter are we on today?
Chapter 9.
Chapter 9.
With the wordoid light or the terms low fat or non-fat in their names.
Okay. Now, Rachel, help me out here. I thought light and non-fat was healthier.
Right.
Help me out.
That's what we were told, right? I think this started out back in the 70s is what he mentions.
That's right. 1977. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So most of my life, this has been a thing that I grew up with, thinking that light, non-fat, low fat, these are healthy terms. Mm-hmm. This is a health food, not something. Turns out it's not a healthy food, right? Mm-hmm. It's a highly processed food, because how do they get the fat out of there? They have to replace it with something. So they replace it with sugar or highly processed other carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm. Right. When you take the fat out of food, the fat that naturally occurs in food, when you take that out of food, it doesn't taste so good, right? Yeah. So you have to replace it with something else. And what did the food industry do? They replaced that with sugar, right?
Yeah.
And so, what's interesting, I, a couple of weeks ago, gave a lecture about all the hunger and satiety hormones and how the fat in foods. Now, we're talking natural fat, Rachel, Ashley, we're talking natural fat, but how the natural fat in food specifically pushes the satiety hormone buttons in our gut. And those are dumped into the bloodstream, and they travel to the brain and say, hey, brain, you have food in your system. You don't need to eat anymore. Stop eating. Yeah. And fat, interestingly, fat pushes all those satiety hormone buttons. Mm-hmm. Sugar, not so much. Maybe one or two, but not all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sugar seems to, just from an anecdotal point of view, it seems to be like sugar is one of those things, the more I have, the more I want. Mm-hmm. That, the more I have, the fuller I get. I get that, like enough is enough. It kind of shuts me down, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's exactly right. Exactly to your point. It shuts you down because it's pressing those satiety buttons in your body and in your brain to say, hey, we have food, we've got energy on board, we can stop eating. We're not starving. The other thing that happens is, we took the fiber out because we processed the carbohydrate. We took the fat out. We added more sugar back in those processed foods. And the other thing that I learned, Rachel, is that that doesn't decrease the ghrelin, the hunger hormone, as much as, let's say, protein and fat. Not fat, but as much as like eating protein. So eating a processed food, which doesn't necessarily have a lot of protein, but we know it has a lot of carbohydrate, naked carbs, kind of, I like to call them, then that maybe decreases ghrelin a little bit, but then ghrelin, that hunger hormone, is going to recycle real quickly. Yeah. So my hunger might go away momentarily, but it's coming right back when I eat those processed foods that have sugar and low fat, no fat.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think when we're talking about this, it's so helpful for people listening. I've gotten a lot of feedback that's like, hey, this is an interesting topic. I love how we give the real life examples of what this means in real life. So give us some examples of the foods that we're talking about that aren't health foods, and they still say on the packages, low food or low fat, light, fat free. Yeah. What are these foods we're talking about?
Yeah, well, I can think of a couple of, low fat, non-fat yogurt, for example. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, there's non-fat, light, but what sugar is thrown in there? So much sugar in those in those yogurts that we think of as healthy, but when we take the fat out and put more sugar in, not so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Crackers, right? Cookies. Those are the more typical ones. So back to the dairy though, that's a really great point. When or is dairy that's non-fat? So the yogurt, we understand because we know that there's a ton of sugar being poured into yogurt to make it taste good. Strawberry flavored yogurt, vanilla flavored yogurt, it tastes like that because of the sugar.
Right.
What about non-fat milk or low-fat milk? Are these good, bad, indifferent?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I might kind of skirt around milk for right now because a lot of us don't tolerate milk to begin with. And when I think of milk, I think of babies, milk great for babies because milk's designed to make babies grow. Yeah. Right. So we can have another conversation about milk maybe another time, but just think about that. Milk is made, is specifically designed with all the signals for growth for babies. Yeah. I'm not a baby anymore. So maybe I don't need milk. I don't, so anyway, it's a question, just a thought.
Cool. So let's put a pin in that because that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a really
good one.
Actually, you've been listening here. What do you think? What do you think?
Well, I just think about what you say to almost every patient. Eating fat doesn't make you fat. And it's all about, like you said, pushing those satiety buttons. And on the other hand, so eating fat doesn't make you fat. And he also says removing the fat from foods doesn't necessarily make them non-fattening. So it's just what we've been talking about is that fat, what you eat doesn't translate immediately into what it is in your body. Fat doesn't translate to fat. Energy translates into fat in your body. And so it's just about getting the right kinds of energy. So
great point. If I'm getting too many processed carbohydrates, which turn into sugar, right, that's going to stimulate insulin release. And that might actually push energy into storage, which is the fat cell, right? And so, so he makes a point that's saying, all these processed carbohydrates. Oh, I got it upside down. Sorry. He makes a point of saying that actually all these processed carbs are fattening. And it's because of how they, what they do in our bodies. They stimulate insulin. And if we already have a little insulin resistance, we might be able to talk about that a little in another show. That's going to push that energy into storage, which is our fat cells. And the fat cells just kind of get bigger. Yeah. So good point. Rachel, what kind of foods do you think about the low fat, no fat foods?
The first one that comes to my mind is SnackWells, because that was the big thing back maybe 15 years ago. I remember a lot of friends wanting to lose weight, and the program that they were using really promoted these fat-free, low-fat, light, snacky type foods, bars and cookies and treats. And it was like, oh, look, I can eat this whole little pouch of things. I don't even know what they were. They're not real food. And they're only 100 calories.
Right.
But full of chemicals, full of highly processed carbohydrates, fat-free maybe, but not doing them any favors. And it's not a real food. So now you're leaning on something that's, it's very sweet, right? And it's kind of tricking your body, tricking your hormones. So that's the first, SnackWells types of things.
Great point there with the SnackWells, because once we took the natural fat out of food and we put sugar in, and we created this constant hunger because we're not pressing our satiety buttons. You know what came out of that is snacking. We have to snack all the time to make this so that we're not hungry, because we're getting hungry because we don't have any fat pushing our satiety buttons. So and the whole food industry, snacking industry kind of blew up around that. And now we've got people eating every 2 and 3 hours. And we didn't used to snack before. Really, if you look at eating patterns before the 1970s, people really did not snack. Snack is a relatively new thing. And I don't think that it's helped our waistlines really at all. So actually, since the 1970s, that's really, when we came out with the guidelines that said saturated fat is super bad, or fat in general, the diet heart hypothesis, that whole thing, and the government came out with these food guidelines, dietary guidelines. Weight has just kind of diabetes, up and up and up, and even heart disease. We may not be dying as much from heart disease, but it's not that the incidence is going down. Yeah. So it's all very interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, because you mentioned saturated fat. The foods that they were making low fat weren't really foods that had high saturated fat in them to begin with.
Yeah.
Maybe the dairy, but crackers were never high saturated fat foods. They were never
right.
Or breads and things like this. That's not even. They just created a whole new food line.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I'm thinking about what the listener might be thinking. Okay, we're talking about fat. Fat is good. You're saying fat's healthy for me. It pushes all the right buttons, makes me feel full, gives me the satiety. What are we talking about? What is healthy fat? What's real fat? You mentioned like a healthy, real fat. What is that?
Right, like an avocado.
Yeah.
It's beautiful fat.
My favorite.
Olives have beautiful fat in them. So these are natural foods that the fat is in there naturally. Nuts, walnuts, another macadamia, pecans. Those are gorgeous, foods that have natural fat. Seeds have great fat in them. So, and some of us will tolerate some more than others of that. Now, I personally feel like the fat in butter is not so bad. It's not all saturated fat. So butter, I feel, comes from a natural source, especially if that cow ate what it was supposed to eat, which is grass, by the way, not corn or other grains. So I feel like the butter from cows that ate grass is natural and has lots of different fats in it. It's not all saturated, by the way. Has some unsaturated fats, some polyunsaturated fats, some omega-3 fats in there. But so those are the kinds of fats that are natural and healthy for my body.
Nice. And if we're talking about the good fats, then there must be some bad fats. What are the types of fats we should be avoiding?
Yeah, great question. So processed oils. Right? Canola oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, I already said something, corn oil. Did I say that already? It's the seed oils that have been highly, a seed has to be heated to a high temperature to extract the oil from it. So that oil, when it's heated to such a high temperature, is already rancid, and it has to be deodorized with chemicals to get the stink out before they put it in a bottle and stick it on a shelf.
Yeah.
And so, those are not doing good things in my body. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Rachel, because if I use an oil, we mentioned all the foods that have the fat in them, and that's the best way for your body to break down the fat is in the food, right? Yeah. If we do use an oil like an olive oil, which is cold pressed, meaning it's not heated, it's cold pressed. We want to make sure that we don't burn that oil, right, when we're cooking, because that burnt oil also does not so great things in our bodies.
Yeah.
I wanted to also mention just because a food is low fat doesn't mean it's bad. So, I mean, all our vegetables, except for avocado. I guess avocado is a fruit, but vegetables, natural, low in fat, naturally low in fat. Does that mean I need to avoid those? No, those are natural. Those are real food. That's whole food. And that low fat is good for me. So much fiber and water and great stuff for my gut. Yeah. So.
And these are foods that aren't going to have a label that says low fat, right? We talked about labels last week. And if a label is on a package and it's telling you it's low fat and it's trying to market that, that's your first clue. why are you so intent on telling me that this food is low fat? What's the point? What are you, I mean, I've seen low fat labels on things that never had fat to begin with, like Coca-Cola or certain drinks. And you're like,
Right.
what are you talking about? But they're
Yeah.
really pushing that marketing line, and people are
Right.
looking for trigger words, and they're just going down the aisle. Low fat, that goes in my cart. That goes in my cart.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it sounds
Another
like
big low fat item is like salad dressings and things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And so they take the fat out, they put the sugar right in there. And so my encouragement to people is if you're going to use a dressing, you can make your own and decide what you like and use the fat or the oil that is cold pressed and delicious. But there's other ways to get your salads and vegetables to taste great. And that's by adding herbs and spices and, basil and thyme and rosemary and cilantro and all that yummy good stuff. So, yeah.
Ashley, you were going to say something. What you didn't pop in there?
Yeah, sorry, I'm working on it. I'm just gonna say it seems like it's all about the processing. So if it was low fat by itself, that's good. And the more real food we can get, whether it has fat or not, the better.
Amen to that. That's great. That's great. And that is a good place to
Tied up with a little bow, didn't she?
Yeah,
She just tied that right up.
Yes. Ashley, that was beautiful. Thank you very much. You get an A for today. So yeah, and it's now time to talk about what we're going to eat. Now, Rachel, you said you just came back from a hike, Pacific Crest Trail hike. Yeah.
Yes, we were backpacking all weekend, and we ate these great plant-based mountain house meals because you're backpacking, so you're kind of packing freeze-dried meals that you put some water in them and they come back up. But we had some amazing plant-based meals. We ate really, actually quite healthy, really well on the trail. Mm-hmm. But now we have no food in our house. No idea what I'm eating for dinner. Absolutely zero idea. I did pick a bunch of fresh tomatoes, yellow squash, and cucumber for my garden.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got a ton of greens I can clip out there. So again, maybe it's kind of some sort of a salad or a saute, maybe like a stir fry, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've got 4 boys. Okay, wait, before I get to me, Ashley, do you have an idea? Do you pre-plan your meals?
My husband makes me dinner.
Oh, nice. Oh.
We have our garden. It's starting to give some tomatoes and stuff. So
awesome.
Good.
Yeah. You're spoiled there. Yeah. I'm gonna have to talk to you about that. Okay. So and I've got 2 of my sons are home, and then they have 2 friends visiting. So I got to come up with something to feed boys.
Wow.
And, so we might get some free range chicken and grill that up. And we've got neighbors who are very generous with the bounty from their garden. And, and so we'll put some greens and zucchini and squash and tomatoes together. Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you, Ashley, for joining us today, and Rachel. Always great talking with you.
Yes.
Until next time.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.